This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We're on the road in our Community Voices Community Media Tour. Yesterday in Phoenix, today we broadcast from Tucson, Arizona. I'm Amy Goodman. The Pentagon and the Department of Homeland Security are developing contingency plans to deploy the National Guard along the U.S.-Mexico border. The Washington Post reported this on Saturday. The proposal falls under a $350 million initiative for, quote, counter-narcotics and other activities that was part of the supplemental budget request sent to Congress this month. Last month, President Obama said he was, quote, not interested in militarizing the border, but the Post quotes anonymous Obama administration officials who say under this plan, the National Guard could be called upon to help with counter-narcotics surveillance and controlling illegal immigration. Earlier this month, Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano announced the appointment of former federal prosecutor Alan Bersin as the new border czar and outlined the administration's main priorities for U.S.-Mexico border.
Everything that can be done to ensure that this border remains safe and secure, to assist the government of Mexico in their efforts against the cartels and the cartel violence in Mexico, Ciudad Juarez being an example of that. And we're going to make sure that those who come and seek to violate our laws by entering our country illegally or bringing contraband into our country, or those who seek going south to carry illegal guns and cash south, that they are apprehended and prosecuted.
Well, today, as we broadcast from the border state of Arizona, we spend the hour looking at the vast human environmental toll of immigration enforcement measures in recent years. We're beginning with an update on the official who's been the focus of recent nationwide protests, a man who likes to call himself America's toughest sheriff, Maricopa County Sheriff Joe Arpaio. Last month, the Justice Department opened a civil rights probe into his immigration enforcement policies. Earlier this month, the House Judiciary Committee heard testimony about Sheriff Arpaio at a hearing on the public safety and civil rights implications of state and local enforcement of federal immigration law. Civil rights leader Reverend Al Sharpton and Bertha Lewis of Acorn have also made public calls for Sheriff Arpaio to resign. But the sheriff is undaunted, conducted an immigration sweep last Thursday night, arresting as many as 23 people. I'm joined now by two guests here in Arizona. Ryan Gabrielson is a reporter with the East Valley Tribune, along with former Tribune reporter Paul Giblin. He has just won the Pulitzer Prize for local reporting and the George Polk Award for justice reporting for their 5-part series on Sheriff Arpaio called Reasonable Doubt. He joins us now from Phoenix. We're also joined here in Tucson by Isabel Garcia, a public defender in Pima County. She's been at the forefront of the immigrant rights issue for over 30 years. She's the co-chair of the Coalition of Human Rights and won the Lannan Foundation Cultural Freedom Award in 2008, as well as the National Human Rights Award in 2006 from Mexico's National Commission for Human Rights. Ryan, let's begin with you in Phoenix. There's a major protest planned against Sheriff Arpaio for Saturday, for May 2nd. First of all, congratulations on your Pulitzer, and talk about the latest news with this, to say the least, controversial sheriff.
Certainly. Thank you very much for having me on. There's been a growing movement nationwide against the sheriff's office, with protests from New York. Of course, it started in Phoenix. Increasingly, celebrities and other major prominent figures from across the country have come here or issued letters to the Arpaio.
Ryan, we're not quite hearing you in New York, but here so we're going to test that microphone. But here in Tucson, we're joined by Isabel Garcia. Isabel, this protest that has been planned, can you talk about why now and what's happening here along the border?
Well, since the mid-1990s, Arizona has become the state where all immigrants were funneled. Over 52% of all immigrants come in through the state of Arizona. We believe under an intentional strategy of creating really the most hostile environment for immigrants, growing not only anti-immigrants, chaos, division at the border, environmental disaster, but eventually to elect the most anti-immigrant folks as well as pass anti-immigrant measures. And sure enough, what we had predicted has come true. Joe Arpaio is exactly what was intended with this particular policy, and now we're seeing the devastation of our communities, the division being caused in those communities, and the suffering he has inflicted upon particularly Latino and indigenous communities in Phoenix. The protest, of course, on Friday is part of an ongoing campaign to get rid of Joe Arpaio. We not only need to get rid of Joe Arpaio, but the underlying 287G agreements that he purportedly acts under, really, as well as some of the legislation in Arizona. He has declared that even if 287G agreements are abolished, that he will continue to do what he does because he has anti-smuggling statutes, he has aggravated identity theft statutes. In other words, we have enacted laws and initiatives in this state that are really anti-human and gives him an opportunity and in order to commit the atrocities. The wholesale racial profiling, of course, is key. He has deputized Minutemen and other individuals that have a real hate agenda. And he has, of course, to the detriment of the taxpayer, particularly in Maricopa County, has focused on immigrants.
Isabel Garcia, for people who aren't familiar with his record, the past, the whole issue of the humiliation of prisoners, the marching of prisoners to the streets, can you just go through one by one these actions that he is very proud of, that people are so deeply concerned about?
Yes, prior to picking the immigrant as his target of his ire, he had already attempted to get the public attention by putting inmates in pink underwear, giving them green bologna sandwiches, creating these tent cities. And when the anti-immigrant fervor began here in Arizona, he saw in the immigrant another vehicle for his catapulting himself to national prominence. And now he has the attention, of course, of all of the anti-immigrant folks. He has paraded immigrants rather than transporting them, as is the usual custom, in buses. He has paraded them through downtown Phoenix in striped uniforms, chained, and with all of the TV around him. In other words, he sends press releases days before he conducts these particular activities. He touts that he conducts raids in workplaces in the middle of the night, in the morning, at any hour. He goes into neighborhoods doing wholesale racial profiling. The only real law enforcement technique he uses is the appearance, of course, of the individual. This gentleman has caused suffering, has divided families. We have videos where the children are crying for their mother. We have testimonies from across the state about the antics of Joe Arpaio and the suffering that he has inflicted on our families, really following the basic wrong premises of immigration policies. Yes, there is a probe. I'm very happy there's a probe, but I think the Congress in this country has to take responsibility for the likes of Joe Arpaio, not countering the anti-immigrant and hate speech he has about immigrants. In other words, we have created this monster.
I wanted to go to a clip and then get a response from Ryan Gabrielson. The sheriff has had to respond to the points that you make in your award-winning series quite a few times. This is an excerpt of an interview that Maria Hinojosa of PBS's Now did with the sheriff last month.
It has been discovered by the East Valley Tribune that your response rates to crimes, that you have wanted your response, you have said that your response rate goal is 5 minutes. It's now up to 11 minutes.
No, it is not. We have improved that. This is a year and a half ago. You're getting all your information from the New York Times editorial, from a newspaper.
Well, this is the East Valley
I
Tribune.
don't care what the East Valley newspaper says.
In your records, out of 669 people arrested by your human smuggling unit, 665 of them were Latinos. Most of them stopped for traffic violations. So how do you explain that?
Are you talking about our great success we have in arresting illegal aliens?
No, I'm asking you a very specific question.
What is the question?
It seems as if, by your own numbers, that hundreds upon hundreds of Latinos had violated the traffic code while only 4 non-Latinos had violated the traffic code.
We stop many people on traffic violations. That's what law enforcement does.
So you're stopping all of them?
Of course.
Can we see those records that
I don't
show
know if
us?
I don't know if I have the breakdown in those records.
But how are we supposed to be able to judge you if you don't
Well,
have the
just
breakdown
take
of
my
those
word
records?
for it and look at the success that we have had.
Mariana Hossa interviewing Sheriff Arpaio. Ryan Gabrielson,